Jackie, you gonna?
So Mark,
Okay. Welcome everyone to the September 22nd Sewer Advisory Committee meeting. We're going to get started with approval of the SAC minutes. Everyone should have gotten them from July 21st.
I guess so move.
Yep.
Second it.
All
I
right.
moved, but I wasn't off of mute, so you didn't hear me. So
Oh, okay.
I'll have
It
to
was a-
settle for a second.
It was a popcorn mute. Okay. So any, let's see, all in favor?
Fine.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Onward to capital projects. We're going to be talking about the thickening centrifuge replacement.
Hey, so how's your day?
Good.
Good.
All right. So sharp old solid thickening. We did get, like I said, the last time we chatted, we came up with a rough magnitude cost in the range of 950 to 1.3 million. This includes the full project cost consisting of the investment grade audit, engineering, removal of old and installation of new equipment, as well as the fees to DES, Department of Enterprise Services. This is a project I'm hoping to get approved for 2022 budget for the SCORF. We really haven't got any further on that. Just like I said, doing the investment grade audit, which is at risk for them. It's no cost to us. And yeah, so that's where we're at with that. No further. We won't go any further really until we get a yes or no moving forward. That is the Sharples.
All right. How about the general nutrient permit update?
So the Puget Sound nutrient general permit draft. No updates since the close of the public comment period on August 16th. So the 2022 budget was not focused on nutrient removal projects for the treatment plant entirely. We did adjust laboratory costs because those are known costs that they had added to that draft. I think it was an additional 12,000. So that will reflect in the budget. Also increased engineering as well in anticipation of both being affected by the NGP issuance set for 2022. That is all I have on capital projects.
All right. And now we jump right into the 2021 mid-year budget status report.
okay, Marty. Oh, let me get my microphone on. I'm sorry. Want to turn your volume down there? Yeah. Marty and I in the same room, so we're playing microphone speaker games here. I'm not able to get to the VPN, so I was hoping Marty could bring that 2022 mid-year budget status report up for you. I am trying frantically to get into that.
I'm sorry, Randy, I should have warned you beforehand. I've been fighting with my computer since 9 o'clock this morning.
Come on. Bear with us, folks, if you could.
Yep.
See, I told you I was going to use this, Jackie. Okay. Actually, it looks like I'm able to get in now. So I just need
It's attached to the meeting, Randy. You should be able to pull it from there.
Boy, somebody's getting some feedback here.
That was me for a second.
Probably Marty. He's signed in 2 places here.
Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm able to get it now. So let me see if I can share this screen. You're going to need to kill your speaker if you would. So Jack, oh, there it is. Okay. This one. And hopefully you folks are seeing this. There we go.
Yep.
Small screen. So, excuse me. So what you have before you is the second quarter of the mid-year 2021 SCORF mid-year budget status report. There is a lot of compiled information here, basically gives a rough summary of what the cash flows and the financial position of SCORF is. If you look in table 1, you'll see that at the end of June, we have a little over $3.3 million. When we started out in January of 2021, we had almost $3.4 million. That's not atypical, or that is not really something to be concerned about, because if you remember in June, we also have those large public trust fund loans that have to be paid that are just shy of $1 million. Revenues are fairly consistent. One of the nice things about SCORF is it is a fixed revenue source. So we don't have to worry about any cyclic cycles or anything that's going on other than modifications or changes in the ERU count per SCORF. The expenditures are on track. They do show that the expenditures are in excess of 50% as of June, but again, that is totally related to those expenditures for that debt obligation payment that is made in June, and that reflects on this sheet when we talk about the expenditures in the table 3. Table 4, again, you're seeing our long-term debt that where we're sitting. We know that in 2022, we retire that one larger loan, loan number 1, and that will help us considerably. And then in 2024, we'll retire the last loan. And SCORF is sitting good with investments and approximately around $1,000 sitting in Key Bank at the time this was prepared. Unfortunately, we're not earning much of an interest rate at 0.327, but overall, the SCORF is in really good condition from a financial standpoint. The money that's coming in, the revenue that's coming in, and the expenditures that are going out are being invested wisely. There's really nothing to say other than good things about what's happening at SCORF with the city and district's money and its investment into its community for the ratepayer system. Does anybody have any questions?
John, did you have some?
I did have a question. I'm trying to formulate it in my mind here. On the revenue table 2.
I'm not muted. Does anybody have any questions? I can't hear. Hold on. I'm sorry. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes.
John?
Oh, okay. We couldn't hear anything.
Oh, because I was talking.
Oh.
Randy, I have a question on the revenue table 2, and
Yeah. I'm sorry, John. Can you repeat yourself? We're trying to balance speakers here. We've got 3 computers going to get you folks the information.
okay. My question is on the revenue table 2. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm trying to, these numbers aren't matching up, but I'm trying to figure out which is which. You've got cumulative total budget revenues of 3.805. The budgeted revenue was 3.810. I'm trying to figure out why they don't match.
So if you're looking at budget, okay, so you've got budgeted revenues and then you actually have cash flow activity. So what you're seeing in table 1 is you're seeing the beginning cash and investments that were in the SCORF funds at the beginning of the year, the receipting of revenue that's come in for both capital and the operating fund from the city and the district, and then the total disbursements.
Okay, but in this particular table, if I'm reading it correctly, the first one is the fund balance as of January 1st, which is 3.398.
Correct.
The second column is budgeted revenues of 3.810. if you go up into the text,
Well,
it indicates the cumulative revenue receipts for second quarter is 1.9 of the total budget revenue of 3.805. I'm assuming that the 3.805 should match the budgeted revenue in your table 2 of 3.810, and they don't balance it. I'm just curious.
looks at actual. So what you're seeing, I think where the confusion is we had a budgeted revenue, which was actually in the budget that was prepared. And then you have the actual cash flow activity that has occurred.
Well, so the title
right.
for that second, after you have the fund balance of 010121, the next column over says budgeted revenue. Go to table 2, Randy.
Oh, table 2. Okay. Oh, I'm in table 1. I am sorry.
That's all right. So you see the second column where it says budgeted revenue
Correct.
of 3.810.
Correct.
You go up in the text refers to budgeted revenues of 3.805.
That would be incorrect. I would have to check.
I feel better now.
Yeah, I'm on the same page you are now, apparently. I was looking at the other table and trying to discern. You are correct. That does not match. I will have to look into that and get that corrected.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you for pointing that out. You know, after we sit and go over these so many times, you don't, sometimes you don't see the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Trust me, I've been lost in the forest many times before.
Yeah.
I bet you have.
And sometimes you have to walk away because you can't even read things anymore.
Yeah, all the numbers, yeah.
I would just blame it on Marty.
Yeah.
No, I'll take the blame. You know, Joy did it. I did it with her. We both proofed each other, and it went through, and things made sense. But now that I look at it after not seeing it for a while, it stands out as soon as you point it out. We'll get that corrected and get that back to the committee with the correct numbers, and I will go through and verify all these before I return this to you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
All right. If we're done with that, then we're going to jump right into the proposed 2022 budget.
Let's see. So are you folks seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Oh, love the PDFs. So what you'll see here is this budget has been laid out similarly to previous years. One of the things that we keep working on in these budgets is to streamline them for a couple of reasons. One, we want to make them easily readable and not confusing because there is a lot of information that can be put in to these budgets, and it becomes overwhelming and a lot of redundancy. And I think it's important that no matter the audience or whoever's reading this, that these budgets are very easy to read and very easy to comprehend. We're not trying to, talk over anybody or anything. We just want to make it very simple and very plain. And it also makes it very easy for folks to understand what's going on with the finances without getting into a lot of detail. So you have before you a budget message, which is similar to than it has been in previous years. If you remember, we last year made some changes to the funding or the funds that we had. We eliminated one fund and consolidated some of our equipment repair and replacement fund into our capital expended, our capital fund. And then yes, this year we did a little bit more and went ahead and started finding tuning some of those capital fund expenditures and put those in the capital fund. There's two reasons for that. One main reason is it simplifies things. The second reason for it is it allows some flexibility in the department without earmarking specific dollars to specific groupings of capital expenditures. Let me give you just a for instance. If, well, we had one this year. We had planned at SQURF to have some asphalting redone and some seal coating redone within SQURF. And we had budgeted a certain amount of money based on a budget proposal and cost projections that were done over a year ago. Fortunately, when Marty went to do this, there was some diminished costs in the market at the time for labor and materials, and he was able to secure the work done for substantially less than what we had previously budgeted for. That allows some flexibility on his part when we find those things out when it comes time to do these type of projects, to be able to potentially expand the scope of these projects and get more bang for the buck since the monies have already been budgeted. Now, some of you folks have either been by here or had the opportunity to come into the treatment facility, and you'll notice that we were able to encompass most, if not all, the areas with seal coating and basically take care of all the areas without having to worry about the constraints that we had on capital money that was available. So it's really nice for us to be able to do that and have that flexibility, and that was the other reason for consolidating this to basically an operating and a capital expenditure a budget. One thing you'll notice on page, and I've got a small screen here, so bear with me. On page 2, Marty talked a little bit about the nutrients general permit. We're still kind of in the dark on where that's at. We have a good idea, but Ecology has not issued a final permit. We're expecting that to be issued before the end of the year, and Ecology has indicated that it will be effective January 2022. Since there has not been much discussion, I believe next week, Marty and I are going to be attending a meeting virtually on where the nutrients general permit is right now and some of the requirements from Ecology and things that they're looking at that may be a little different than the draft permit that was put out. And at that point, we'll have a little more idea of how consistent with the draft permit the requirements are going to be from Ecology. And then again, as it says in here, in 2024, when we have a new NPDES permit issued for the facility, we expect there's going to be some specific requirements that are earmarked or identified for this facility. And we'll start seeing that as new NPDES permits get issued for the different treatment plants, but we're still uncertain as to what those may be. Ecology has just alluded that there may be specific regulatory requirements imposed on POTWs, so we're expecting that to happen. You know, as we talked last year, and we talked a little bit this year, back in 2019, I had approached the Sewer Advisory Committee and said we want to start taking a look at our debt obligation pay down and start putting some of that money away so that we could be financially prepared to deal with some of these challenges that were unknown because of an issuance of an NGP. And we had expected that to be issued somewhere in the mid 2030s, and we're kind of surprised that this had escalated and become such a hot topic for Ecology. But we know that due to potential litigation and some of the things that have happened, that's kind of forced their hand. So kind of an important thing for us to deal with, and we really don't have much choice. Going down to the budget overview, not a lot has changed. I did in here I'm sorry, did somebody have a question? I did put in here, one of the things that you'll see if you look at under the 2022 budget overview and the funds, you will see in 2022, the total SCWRF budget is a little bit higher than it has been, but you'll also notice that the capital expenditures are going up for 2022. In 2019, 2020, and 2021, our capital expenditures in the plant were not that much. We were looking forward, trying to make a determination as to what the best way to go was in the treatment plant. And we didn't spend a lot of money on capital expenditures, knowing that the talk got pretty heavy in 2020 on the nutrients general permit. And of course, we know that the end of 2020 and 2021, they basically said it was definitely happening. We have a little bit more broader understanding of what's happening. We still don't know the specifics until the permit's issued. But one of the things that we know that is very important to us is recycle loads in the plant. And I'm not going to get into a lot of detail, but those recycle loads are created from solids handling. And so we thought it was one of the most prudent things to do since we had a large piece of equipment. When I say large, I'm talking high dollar value that was looking to have a fairly costly repair done to it, knowing that it probably had about a 5-year life left on it. And that was kind of a struggle for us. But originally we did budget for that repair, for that Sharple centrifuge because of the unknown. And because we wanted to ensure that, you know, we weren't going out and spending money on capital with the unknown of what was looming over our head with the NGP. So you'll see in there when we get to the capital plan, there is, what is it, 1.2 million? Is that correct, Marty? 1.3 million in the capital plan for replacement of that thickening centrifuge with a rotating thickening drum for that. The reason for that is number one, it's a lot less maintenance. Your overhead costs for that are significantly less for power and wear. And it also takes less resource to operate that equipment. We started moving towards that with the screw press, of obtaining that type of equipment to reduce those maintenance and resource costs. And they also save on our chemical costs. So they are a better long-term bang for the buck, so to speak. In looking and preparing the budget, the one thing that the SCWRF is not going to be able to do this year is meet that balanced budget that we always strive for. But we also know that there has been some diminishment in the ERU counts and growth over the last couple of years. And the one thing that we wanted to do to not offset that is artificially or prematurely raise the contribution rate from the city and the district. And we feel by just kind of hanging back 1 year and letting us get through this last large payment on Public Works Trust Fund number 1, then we won't have to address that issue for several years. That'll allow the city and the district to build its coffers somewhat and do what it can to set it up, up financially for its independent collection and conveyance systems. And we think that the SCWRF will be fine for a while. And it also gives us a chance to still put some money away and kind of step back and see what's going to happen with this nutrients general permit and what type of planning we really need to do. So that's an important note. Fund balances, nothing's really changed. Our long-term funding options, and budget planning has stayed the same. Our financial management accountability continues to stay the same. And we do have a new 20-year capital plan that was prepared by Marty. And we're working on, putting a little more detail in those plans so that we get a more comprehensive 20-year plan rather than taking and putting a lot of things down on paper that may or may not be realistic. We're trying to be a little more focused and comprehensive. In 2022, there is no merit recommendation for any staff changes. However, I did budget a 5.2% COLA within the salaries and benefits. As many of you know, there has been some changes in our economy recently, And there's feeling that some of this may be transitory and it may not reflect what's actually happening in the economy. If we take the CPIU numbers for 2021, we started off in January at 1.4, 1.6 February, 2.4 March, 3.9 April, 4.7 May, June 5.1, July 5.2, and August 5.0. This is all items in Western urban areas. And so the first half of the year basically was at 3.2%, and it appears that percentage index is dropping off, but we're not really sure where that's at. So before we really, it is budgeted in here, but before the district takes and looks at salary scales, it makes a determination on what we are going to actually have as a COLA. We want to see how transitory or how solid this number is. And also you'll note that I did put on there down below in that second paragraph under personnel staffing, that depending on the perceived transitory nature, the CPIU, we may look at a lower COLA amount and potentially just add a $50 a month recommendation in lieu of the perceived abnormal inflationary value for the August CPIU index value. Normally we see these trends that are pretty consistent, but this one seemed to be spike, and I don't think there's a lot of economic confidence that this is anything more than transitory. I'm not an economist or a financial person that's really heavily into this thing, but I do want to kind of take a wait and see attitude. And with that, and when we get towards the end here and we're discussing this, I'd like the SAC committee to keep in mind that we'd like to keep October 13th open, and possibly sometime in November, that if we want to come back and reapproach anything on here, that we leave this open for the Sewer Advisory Committee to come back and reproach anything that they want to.
Randy, can I ask a question?
Certainly.
In that, and I appreciate the transitory nature of COLA, I think in what I've seen and been reading, I think the prediction for the year is going to be more like 3 to 3.5. My question is the $50 flat add-on. That,
right.
You know what that equates to as far as percentage? It seems like it's pretty small.
Well, that would be in addition to a reduced COLA amount. If we came in, I think that everyone here would agree that it's very easily to tie things to a COLA amount, but unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever your perspective is the district's policies don't contain any type of floor or ceiling level when it comes to COLAs, and it doesn't define any defined policy on how those are going to be applied. And I think when we look at the numbers leading up to this over a year's period, it does seem like it's artificially inflated. However, we've all been and bought gas and acquired groceries lately, but we also know there's some influencing factors such as the lack of labor, which is driving up trucking cost, or it's creating some of the scarcity items, and it may be a transitory, falsely inflated number based on conditions that are going to smooth out.
Yeah, I understand the volatile nature of the COLA. I'm trying to understand the $50. Is that in lieu of a COLA? So there would be no COLA increase, but it's just a flat $50?
No,
or
what we would be looking at, so what we'd be looking at, even though that COLA came in at say 5.2% for August, we would be looking at maybe adjusting that down and then providing for an additional $50 per month towards the medical, and kind of making a judgment call based on the other numbers on something that seems more realistic with the data that we have without having to wait for the whole year. I just wanted to make sure that that was mentioned in here, that if we do adjust that down, we may be looking at that increase of $50 to be considered.
So
in lieu of that inflated number, say we may come in and go, look, really the reality is 5.2% is not reality. You said you're looking at 3.5. I was actually looking at 3.2 theoretically, looking at the first half number and then maybe adding the $50 to it, but seeing what happens over the next month and seeing what this trend is.
So
nothing.
basically, if I'm understanding this correctly, and I'm just trying to understand what you're proposing, it's going to be COLA plus $50 a month.
Unless that 5.2% looks like it is a solid number, it's not a transitory number, then the $50 would be yanked and we would go with the 5.2%.
Okay, so if it's less than 5.2, it would be COLA plus $50.
As long as it doesn't exceed what that 5.2% would be overall for the employee's wages and benefit costs.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand what you're proposing. I've just never seen that. Usually there's a floor and a ceiling on a COLA.
Exactly.
But
So I'm
but
sorry,
the
John.
floor isn't really the $50. What it is whatever the COLA is plus $50 if it's under 5.2.
Correct. So one of the things I am going to be proposing when I do come with the salary schedules this year, and our board has not heard this, is that we tie a floor and ceiling into that COLA amount. We pick a month and we do it that way, because when you get in these type of situations, it kind of puts you in an area that you may not actually be doing what's either in the best interest of the employees or the best interest of the organization, in taking a spike transitory number and applying that as a COLA. And this is a kind of an interesting nature with everything that's happened with COVID. I think we're all learning about different things and how some of these effects are. But I think that the supply and demand characteristics of our economy right now, the lack of labor and stuff, my perception is, while this value is true based on that CPIU, I do not think it is indicative of what's going on. And I'm hesitant to feel comfortable recommending that at this time.
Other than organized labor, I don't think anybody believes that the 5.2 is going to be the reality for the rest of the year. That's why I mentioned 3.5 in that range. But I understand what you're saying. I was just trying to get into my mind. I've never seen the COLA plus a flat $50.
Right.
So I was just trying to add what you're proposing here is all.
Right. So historically, the district, has looked at the August CPIU number. But I'm just having a hard time with that. Trying to be fair not only to the employees, but fair to both the city, the district, and the district with its employees, is to make sure that we're not creating any kind of issue, because we don't have organized labor. And it did bring up the need to really start examining those floor and ceiling limits for COLAs. That kind of became important when they started putting out. As we go through the budget, you can see based on this 5.2%, when you look at those salaries and you look at those benefit costs, it goes up fairly quickly when you're doing it over a large group of people, as the city can fully understand. And it's just not palatable. And it's not something that works with the budgets the way they are, knowing that we had a 0 or a little bit over 0 and a negative 1.15 ERU count, and diminishment of those revenues coming into the SCWRF. It just doesn't work. The funding level is not there to support these kind of changes, especially if they cannot be solidly depended on as being real values to reflect what's going on in the long term. Just my personal opinion. So, and it sounds like you folks are kind of agreeing with me in that position. So any other questions on that?
So what happens if it's 5.1% and the $50 in addition puts it over 5.2?
Well, then the $50 would not be considered. So if you read through that, it says it may be considered in lieu of the perceived value for August. So we're not going to do anything that's going to be in excess of that 5.2%. That's the max it was budgeted. If we do ratchet it down and say we use the mid-year number or something, we'll look and see where that comes in after the next month's data comes out. If it looks like it's decreasing, we'll take a hard look at that. But yeah, it's not going to be both unless we artificially not using the CPIU, drive that number down to give some kind of balance to the employees. But the financial hit from going to, even if it is 5.1, obviously that $50 a month would exceed that 5.2, and I would not recommend that 5.2%. There's anything that we do cannot exceed that 5.2 overall. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Well, no, to me, it doesn't. I mean, you can exceed the 5.2. I mean, we have the ability to do that, but,
Right.
but I did my little math quickness here. Based on a $50,000 salary, a $50 increase per month for the medical would end up being like a 1.2% raise.
Correct.
So if you're talking 5.2, and let's say it comes in at we just give them a 4.4% COLA, well, that with give them the $50, that ends up being a 5.2 again.
Right. Yeah, depending on your salary level, and that's what you have to look at. We have to look at everybody's salary
Yeah,
level.
I just hit 50,000 for just a round number to go from. So yeah, obviously if it's 5.2 and you give them the $50, that'd be a almost 6.5% increase.
We wouldn't, like I said, the $50 is something that might be considered if we drive down that CPIU number off the August value, because that's what it looks like. But the combined total will never exceed the 5.2%.
Why would we consider that?
Why would we consider that? Because the 5.2% is considered a transitory value. It seems like it's an artificially inflated number. And right.
But whether if it's 5.2 and we say no, like John said, it's 3.2, but then if you give them a $50 increase in the medical, that it's not a 3.2 anymore. Now it's a 4.4.
That is correct. The $50 is something that may be considered if that number is driven down. If we come in next month and the number drives down to 1.2%, then that's going to drive that 3.2% down to 2.9% or so. So you really have to take a look and see how those numbers come in next month to figure out where this is really at. I think it's an artificially inflated number over the last couple months, just due to what's been going on in the economy, and doesn't really represent that long-term increase. It just doesn't sit well with me. And looking at the finances, it's not something that's viable. But we're not going to add the $50 in if things are looking like we're going to be up there around 3.5%. Then the $50 is not going to be considered. What I'm saying is if the numbers drop substantially, and then we may look at something like that. So, but we're not saying to do both. It says may be considered.
Well, I understand. I got you there, but if I look on the one hand, if you give them the increase in the medical, that's a better deal for the employee because that's non-taxable money.
Correct. That's correct.
But I guess, but however you want to put the two together, the bottom line comes down is what the recommendation is for a salary or a COLA. I know that it said that it could be 5.2 at this time now, or it shows that it is, but like you say, 2 months from now, maybe 1.9, but somewhere along the lines, we, with your recommendation, have to make the decision on what is an appropriate COLA for the employees in 2022, correct?
Correct. And what
Okay,
I'm
okay.
telling you is however we look at this and however we formulated it's been budgeted for up to 5.2% in the salaries and in the benefits. But however the combination happens, it will not exceed that 5.2%.
I got you. So you're, okay, you're rolling it back to, this is what, we're not talking about what they're going to get, but your budget is a max of 5.2
Correct.
in planning. Gotcha. I'm on
Right.
board.
It's just a planning number without really being able to make any kind of recommendation. And I can't honestly justify that number, even though that's a real number, because when I look at the whole year and what's going on in the economy, I think it's an artificially inflated number.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and use it for budgeting purposes, but I'm not going to tell you we're looking at a 5.2% COLA.
I'm on board now. I got you. It's
Yeah.
just a planning figure. Okay, got you.
Randy,
I have another question. Excuse me, Cindy,
Certainly.
go ahead.
no, that's okay. I think that actually, I mean, we're all starting to get what you're saying. It's the way it's worded.
Yeah.
And maybe having, a range, but it's just a little odd. So
Yeah,
it's-
and it is, and that's one of the reasons why, when we start talking about our salary scales and this COLA and it goes before our board, I want to talk about enacting a floor and ceiling on to eliminate these kind of issues, because it is vague and it is, it's not concise. Basically, I'd said that the index was 5.2%. However, the value is considered transitory value, may be adjusted down. That doesn't say a lot. And then, I came back and said basically that, because of that transitory nature of that number, we may see an increase in lieu of a perceived abnormally inflated value. So we may create a number that is more palatable. But I just don't have enough data and information to feel comfortable making a recommendation. It was kind of all over the place, looking at the numbers, and everything I've read and everything I've heard substantiates this is just kind of a bad position to be in this time of year. So hopefully we'll see something change. Yes, John, I'm sorry.
My comment gets back to the $50 to me, because you have a range of salaries based on your
Correct.
employee. Some are going to get a higher percentage than others.
So
When you
yes,
use a fixed dollar amount, if you add $50 to somebody that makes $40,000 a year, that's a much bigger deal than adding $50 to somebody that makes $100,000 a year.
correct. So when you drive that percentage down, you add that 50, I'm not going to say it levels the playing field, but it becomes more value for that employee that makes a lesser salary.
But why? What's the justification? I get
Well, so the justification,
schedules reflect the value of the individual job.
no, usually when any kind of increase for medical is given, it's a fixed rate across the board, irregardless of salary. It's a benefit. The benefit is equivalent to all employees. There is no consideration as to the employee's salary to make that determination on that benefit increase.
So the increase is based on the benefit, not the salary.
Correct. But if you looked at it in combination with the salary, your
I appreciate
assessment is
you looking
correct.
good, but when you look at it in combination, that's where you get a different percentage of
Correct.
what your base salary is. So I guess I've never seen that before, so it just seems like a little strange, but I don't want to beat a dead horse here.
No, and the district has done this a couple of times in my career with the district, driven down a COLA rate and then implemented an increase in medical dental vision benefit.
But generally, isn't that in lieu of a 3% COLA, we'll give you 2% COLA and
Exactly.
benefit, where what you're suggesting is whatever the COLA turns out to be, plus $50, and as long as the two don't add up to 5.5 or 5.2.
Well, you know, if we're up close to that 5.2, right now, the number that I have in my head is the first half of the year average number, which is 3.2%. And that's what I'm looking at, but I'm waiting to see what next month's CPIU number value comes out for September and possibly October. If they're driving that down and it's around 3 to 3.5%, then it would only be the COLA. If that number gets, this is what I would be looking at right now. If the value gets hammered, and let's say we drop below 1% for the next few months, which really pulls all that down, then maybe we'll be looking at doing an average for the year and perhaps the $50. The problem is I don't know what's going to happen, but I just don't feel confident in making a recommendation that the 5.2%.
Yeah, no, I get it, Randy, that's not the issue. Fine,
Yeah.
Let's move on here. We're beating a dead horse.
Okay, and I apologize if I have not worded this so that it was clear. I will work on that next time. Operating fund, you folks know the ERU counts and the dollars for the operational costs, and also for our capital. In 2022, obviously the district provides oversight and management of the facility. We feel that that's going well. We want to continue 2022 to have adequate resources for training, continual education of our staff. That is very important. One of the pluses of COVID has been a more openness and more insertion into the training for webinars and computer-based training, which does reduce costs, and that's always a plus. You folks are very familiar with the 2 Public Works Trust Fund loans. The ones that were secured in 2002, 2004. And like I said, next year we'll be retiring one loan, and then 2 years later we get to retire the other loan. Currently our debt payments are about $921,000. We're still looking at the $200,000 of general facility charges, or I think capital facility charges, you folks call them, coming into the plant in 2022 because those debt payments are so high. Our capital improvement fund, like I said, Marty has 1.376 million in projects identified. As I spoke before, one is the replacement of the Sharp Rail thickening centrifuge. And then we have money in there for any unplanned equipment replacement. And then miscellaneous minor capital outlays that occur throughout the year. You have the values in there for the earmarked money that is going to your capital fund from those treatment capital costs that are collected by the city, or excuse me, the direct capital contribution by the city and the district of $1 per ERU, which puts us at $23.50 per ERU. Overall, you know, the treatment plant is very well run. It's fairly easy from a financial standpoint to manage because we do have that fixed revenue, and things are going really well there. And we're really happy with what's going on. We have a recap of our ERU count. This is our debt payment schedule with interest that you see. And you see in 2022, we'll get rid of that basically $539,800 principal. And then we've got the other $15,500 of interest, or basically $556,000, so to speak. And then we'll be riding on that a little over $360,000 loan that we have to pay off up until 2024. So we'll be looking good after 2022. And that's one of the reasons why we want to ride 2022 without doing any kind of rate assessment increase from the city and the district, and just run with a kind of an unbalanced budget, complete that proposed project, and then start catching up and replanning in 2023 once we have the debt paid off and we have a good handle on that nutritional permit requirements. This next sheet that we have is basically a summary of the different things within the budget. Your beta getting balances, what your actuals were in June, proposed for 2022. You're seeing your total revenues that are projected for 2022, which you can see is lower than 2021, and that's because of that 1.15 decrease in ERUs percent. Here's what I was talking about earlier. When you look at the salaries, that 5.2% drives those salaries up from basically $763,000 to $807,000. It also drives the benefits go down a little bit. Why do the benefits go down? Well, the benefits go down a little bit because in past years, they were not broken out. They were artificially inflated. And so we're trying to clean all that up as part of this budget cleanup. Supplies are going down. That's obvious. Marty's going to be working on trying to cut some of those, and you'll see those in the line item. Intergovernmental services expense is going down. Your information systems is changing. We've acquired some equipment this year. We're working on segregating that out and reallocating where those costs go for those information systems. Your debt service obviously is not changing much, about $5,000. And you see that your expenses are actually going down a little bit for 2022 over 2021 in your general operating. Yes.
How much of the debt service is going to go away after we diffuse or pay off the loan in 22?
22?
Yeah.
You are dropping $555,358, and I don't have a percentage for you.
Okay.
But you're basically taking that 920,000 and dropping 550,000 off of it. So it's a chunk.
60%.
Yeah, somewhere in there. It'll probably right now. I think the debt obligation is running around what, 25%, 26%. It'll probably drop you down to probably about 15%, between 10 and 15%. But I haven't crunched the numbers. But this number right here is huge. I mean, this is the last, 2022 is the last payment, and then we're down to, something that's a lot more palatable for a debt payment. So here is the operations fund, where we've taken, instead of that summary you saw, we basically identified those line item details for you. You can see there's some minor changes. Again, you can see how the salaries and overtime were affected, even by reducing the amount of temporary help that could be used. By 25%, it still drives that number up substantially. These numbers here are yes. I'm sorry. Somebody asked a question. These numbers here are based on a cost allocation that's done for all staff. This includes that 5.2%, but does not include that $50, because we figured after 5.2%, this is what it would be. And if it gets adjusted, it's going to be going down. So please understand that. Your supplies, services, intergovernmental services haven't changed a lot. Now, one of the things I talked to you about earlier was we were working on this IT service, on getting that defined and cleaned up. And you see that both between the accounting support and the IT service, I know $40 seems funny, but that's what it came out to be, is that we're really working on cleaning all that up. And SCWRF is also working on taking on some of these responsibilities internally, so that those costs are driven down and they're performed by the facility. Your capital outlays that you used to see, you're now going to see those in your capital fund, coming out of your capital fund. They're not going to be identified in the operation fund. Same with this information services that's happening. There's a picture of your loans. Total cost of $921,000 for 2022, $925,300 for 21. And so that's quite a chunk of change that we're going to see drop off after 2022. You're also seeing that West Sounds Utility District's financial policies require a minimum of 15% of your revenue in your operating budget to go into your capital. We're looking at moving 1.1 million. The reason for that is because of that $1.3 million project. And then we're going to move to a quick summary of your capital fund. It's laid out the same. You've got your beginning balance, your contributed income, miscellaneous income. Oh, and by the way, you see this value here of 3,000. We have received leachate. So we're anticipating, Marty, do you have an idea yet? Have you got a count? So we haven't got tear slips yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if we're around between $60,000 and $70,000 again of miscellaneous revenue for the leachate that will be added in to this beginning fund balance once receipted. Capital outlays, as you see in 2021, you're looking at $176,000 for the minor projects that they had going on. And then we're looking at the 1.393438 in 2022, which includes the capital projects that we spoke of, and also some of the IT stuff that I told you was redistributed. So looking at the capital, we have our contributed contribution from the city and the district. That's based on that ERU count. We're still anticipating a $60,000 miscellaneous revenue for leachate, some miscellaneous income from scrap metal, those type of things, nothing major. We're looking at 1.375 for the outlay for capital equipment. And then there's your variables, 18,438 for information systems, for SCADA systems, computer hardware, those types of things on your information systems within the treatment plant. There's no really plan for any engineering services. The project is happening next year, basically has those included. And obviously you're seeing that transfer in from the operating of 1.1 million. And we're looking at having an ending fund balance very similar to what we had for prior year with those capital expenditures. So any questions so far? Now, I apologize for this small screen, and this is one of the bad things about not having us here. Oh, come on, don't do this to me. Computer's locking up. If you look in 2022, let me scroll this over some, you'll see that this is based on our capital information. This is our beginning fund balance. This is the ERU assessment, and then we project out a 1% growth over the years for both the city and the district. So these are all projected numbers. Remember, 2022, as we know where we're at, the rest of this is basically a scientific wild guess, but projected on past. If we did use the last gross numbers for the last couple of years, we'd be going negative here. So we went ahead and added 1% in. We still assume we're going to get that 60,000 leachate treatment. We know that as time goes on, we'll probably be making an adjustment in that costing for that. And that number will, or that value will increase. This is saying the operating percent, 15% in, but what we really did is try to look at it and try to tie it into what, may be happening with some of the things that need to be addressed into the future. And then you come down and you see that the equipment replacement was at 75,000 as previously discussed. That centrifuge replacement was at 1.3 million. And then you see the computer equipment and things to do with SCADA network and those type of things within the plant and getting those all up to speed for security reasons and make sure that we are meeting all the requirements for our insurance company as far as preventing malware and unauthorized intrusions and those type of things. I don't know if the city's aware of this. It sounds like there's going to be some more stringent requirements that are going to be imposed on government agencies. And we're trying to kind of get ahead of it, or at least be prepared that when we have to do it, it's not a huge impact. So we have put some money into that the last couple of years, and we feel that we're sitting pretty good down here at SQURF and up at the district. And so we're pretty happy with that. So any questions on this? Can you folks hear me?
I hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear you.
Another thing that we did too, and we want to make sure that this is clear. A lot of times these projections over time, as you know, costs change. So we just wanted to note that the base cost dollars are based on the budget preparation year. So your 2022 numbers are based on budgetary pricing that we were able to get in 2021. And so these obviously are going to change over time. I always forewarn people that the 2022 number, you can count that we'll be safe with that number pretty much unless something crazy happens in the economy or in the labor costs or material costs or shortages. But once you start hitting in to 23 and 24, that's a relatively good idea of what we will be doing, but not necessarily representative of the cost. Once you get out to 3 to 5 years past, especially beyond 5 years, it's an informed guess, but don't put too much merit into some of those numbers. But one of the things that you can see within the SQURF budget, when you take these total capital expenditures over time, they are a lot less money, and of course they are going to increase, than what the projected capital revenues will be over time. The only thing that we have in there that's kind of questionable right now is what are some of the implications of the nutrients general permit? Is there any accelerated capital investment that's going to need to be made by the plant? And how financially is that going to affect us, along with the finite capacity in the plant? As we start getting closer to the end of the year, we know that that's pinned down. Marty and I will get together and we'll take a hard look at what's going on, where we're going to end up with that new permit, the numbers that they're going to impose on us, and be able to provide those projections on the capacity of the plant based on those projections. And then it'll help identify things that we can do to mitigate some of those issues so that we can maintain as much of that capacity as we can for as long as possible. So, any questions?
Thank you for your efforts.
Well, we're trying. I just wish we knew what was going to be in that permit. Along with about 73 other plants that are not feeling very comfortable right now. So once I will get that mid-year budget report fixed for you folks, I will also get you over, we've got electronic copies, but I'll make some folders up and get you some folders for your folks' review. Typically, we would take and, if I'm not mistaken, we would usually, the SAC committee would quasi-adopt this at this point, knowing that we would leave it open. Our board is not planning on adopting the SQURF 2022 budget until December 6th is what we have on a schedule. I would like to leave open a pending meeting for the SAC committee on the 13th to come back and review anything that you folks may want to talk about. And then, like I said, we're going to kind of float this up until December 6th. I really want to see what those September, October, and possibly the November CPIU numbers come out. And then I have a better sense of what my recommendation is going to be for a COLA or a lesser COLA and possibly an integration of a $50 benefit for medical dental vision. But at this point, I cannot make a recommendation and feel comfortable with it.
So Randy and the rest of us all, I am wondering if you would consider leaving, instead of the 13th, would you consider the 20th? Would that be a possibility with everyone's schedules? I have a conflict on the 13th.
No problem. I had just put this out when I made the schedule back in the end of June. So 20th?
Is there anyone, would everyone be able to handle the 20th if we need that meeting, October 20th?
Yeah, I have no problems.
Okay.
Okay, great. And I guess now, Jackie, are you gonna give us the latest update on the Marina Pump Station?
Meeting date.
Yeah, Randy, can you unshare your screen, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
That's okay. Sorry, I was just noting that October 20th date.
Thank you, thank you.
Oh, come on. Where did you go?
Should be down at the bottom. There we go. Okay.
No. I lost everybody. I lost the whole screen.
Oh, there you are.
That's why I said, where did you go?
Okay, so I just got an update actually from RH2 this afternoon, as a matter of fact, that they are a little bit behind. They were supposed to have the 80% plans to us. The schedule says April/September. So I had emailed and said, are we going to see plans next week? And they're a little bit behind. They had a couple of challenges. One of the challenges is that they have, let's see, let me pull up the email. I just had it here. They had originally budgeted $8,000 for the aesthetic features around the pump station, and their subs bid came back at 35. So they've got to do some pencil pushing there. And they also are dealing with some specific issues, like we were trying to keep the existing Vaughn chopper pump because it's not that old, but it's too small and is going to take up room that we could be using for the crews to get around to do maintenance and whatnot. So they're a little bit behind, but I think that we'll probably have them about mid-October. And that for staff, of course, to do a review and comment.
Okay. So, and Jackie, remind us, so we'll be able to, they'll start work on that project next year?
That's the plan, yes, exactly. And we remember that our grant/loan was increased from 4.1 to 13 million, so.
Right. Okay. All right, any questions at all by anyone on any of these issues? Okay, I think we've covered everything inside and out. So looks good. And we'll leave October 20th open if we need to have any discussion about the budget.
And would that meeting also be virtual?
I would suspect so, wouldn't you, with the way things are going, everyone?
Yes.
Yeah, let's count on it.
All right.
The numbers aren't changing that quickly.
No.
So yes, a Zoom meeting on the, we'll plan for a Zoom.
Cindy, I
All
just
right.
had one question, kind of off topic, if you don't mind. You know, we had the discussion, I think last meeting about ERUs and, for lack of better words, throughput. And I was just curious, now that the schools have started up again, and, you know, businesses to a certain degree, are you starting to see additional throughput through the system?
That would be your question, Marty. You know, West Sound's not really, I'd have to defer that to Marty as far as contributed flows, because the way our billing cycles are, I really won't see those numbers. They take a while to catch up.
Yeah.
For consumption, as does the cities. I think you operate on a 2-month billing cycle like we do, alternating billing cycle. So what do you think, Marty? Have you seen any hydraulic increases?
It's actually a pretty dry summer. Obviously, we haven't had rain really in 3 months, so we've been really averaging, you know, really low at like a 1.5 summertime flows with really no increases, except for this last weekend we had the rain for the 3 days, and we did get an increase. We wound up getting up to 2 million over the weekend, but they've dropped back down. No noticeable flows at all, aside from we did receive the leachate for 2 weeks in August, and we could tell it was about 100,000 gallons a day that they're sending in here. But other than that, it's just been consistently the 1.5 average, you know, no noticeable flow.
Just curiosity. Thank you.
Okay.
On the good side, Jay, is after we had a chance to sit down and go through everything, consider everything that's been done over the past few years with support of the SAC committee, we were still able to come in with this budget, even with that, I hate to say artificial, but an inflated COLA number, and still meet that without having to address potentially coming in and saying, we need more money out of your capital funds, or we need to raise that rate. I mean, that was a struggle to really pan that out. Like I said, we took and really started sharpening the pencil on things to make this work and be as palatable, but as fair and equitable as possible.
It was still a good discussion tonight.
Yeah, we can't run like this all the time, but we can do it for 2022 and just kind of get over this hump.
Right. Thank you.
And I appreciate, Marty, you and the staff down there. You had those lemonade stands out there going this summer for extra revenue. I appreciate
No one
that.
wanted to buy lemonade from you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, those have been selling really good, believe it or not.
I guess lemonade is better than chocolate eclairs. So.
And on top of all that, I guess I didn't mention on here, we also,
All bad.
for 2020, we got the performance
All
award again
bad.
from Ecology.
All right.
So,
Well, thank you
for the
very
plant.
much.
So
And
we haven't received it yet, but we're on the list of like 120 recipients out of 330. So that's
Yeah.
another cool thing to do that during 2020 when we were on some weird shifts and still be able to pull that off. It was pretty cool. So doing something right still.
excellent.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much. I think we'll adjourn the meeting tonight.
All right.
Stay
Thank
safe,
you all.
everyone, and we'll see you.
Okay.
Everybody, good night.
Bye-bye. Good night.